to the show. I think y'all know Kale. And you might recognize Kenan from television.
These videos are not for children. If you're a children, then piss off.
Why?
Hey there, it's me, your least favorite YouTuber, Infuso. And today I get to talk about one of my all-time favorite TV shows growing up. One that I have very fond memories of, even if I don't remember them so well. Look, I don't remember the show to a T, I just remember being thoroughly entertained by the show when I was young. I mean, there's things from it that I remember. I remember at the end of every episode, Kenan coming up with some scheme, telling Kel to get a variety of items that don't necessarily seem like they fit together, to which then Kel would say,
Ah, here it goes.
I remember Who Loves Orange Soda?
Kale loves orange soda.
I remember Kenan's dad flipping the fuck out all the time. I remember the sets, I remember the characters, I remember the little minute details, but the foundation of the show is what I remember. But nostalgia could be a real tricky bitch. So I was a little bit worried about rewatching this series. I mean, what if it didn't live up to the hype? What if it didn't live up to my memory of it? This is a show that's near and dear to me, even if I don't entirely remember it. Anytime I see Kenan Thompson, who I've seen in a million things since the end of this series, the first thing I think about is Kenan and Kel. And that guy has been on SNL for like the last 50 years. And still, my mind goes, Kenan and Kel. His face and his face alone is a nostalgia trip for me.
What a bunch of...
Kenan Thompson.
No! Kenan?
At first, I refused to watch Drake and Josh because I thought they were just trying to copy and paste Kenan and Kel. I literally used to call this show Diet Kenan and Kel. To be fair, they really weren't. Like, not in entirety. I'll get back into that later. Ken Foree is a horror legend, probably best known for his roles in Dawn of the Dead and Halloween. But not for me. See, because to me, he is and will always be the dad from Kenan and Kel. My point is that this show has a very special place in my heart. I have a lot of love for it. This is something special to me. And not just special to me, special overall. You know too many shows that Coolio made the theme song for? Yeah. Didn't think so. The show showcases its leads. Those leads being who else but Kenan and Kel. It's a pretty straightforward show. The two were the classic double act. In terms of comedy, Kel was around to do stupid shit, and Kenan was really just there to react to all of it. Kel does something outrageous, and then Kenan makes the face, or delivers a well-placed quip. But in terms of storytelling, Kenan would usually be the character that episodes were based around, with Kel just there to be a part of whatever mischief Kenan wound up finding himself in. Kenan was very much a real-life Eddie from Ed, Edd n Eddy. He was always coming up with the wildest schemes to either get rich or try to get the girl. Whoever that girl may be, it was a different one every week. I mean, to be fair, he was young, and that is usually how those things go. His plots became the episode's plots more often than not. He's relentlessly self-centered and selfish, but he usually comes around by the end of the episodes. He has been shown to put others' needs before his own. But at the end of each episode, it was basically a complete reset, so whatever development there was done with him in an episode was already gone by the next episode. Like, this dude constantly learned and then forgot lessons over and over and over again for 4 seasons. Long story short, Kenan is without a doubt the brains of the whole operation. Though a lot of the time it seems like he's the only one on the show with brains. It's hard to describe a lot of the other characters outside of Kenan on the show without making it seem like you're just repeating yourself. I mean, everyone else, everyone in his age group, everyone older than him, younger than him, everyone on the series is pretty much just played for goofs. They're all dim-witted in the presence of Kenan's Jimmy Neutron-sized brain. It's like every person on this show has an IQ of 16, except for the 16-year-old. Which is probably why Kenan thinks he's gonna get away with whatever he's trying to get away with from episode to episode. Usually he doesn't. Almost always he doesn't, actually. But it's not often his fault. At least not entirely. I'll tell you one thing, though, that's always boggled my mind. How puberty hit Kenan Thompson. It's like one episode he was 13, and then the next episode he was 25. Which is even more confusing now, because 22 years after the finale, Kenan's only about 30. Kel is Kenan's sidekick and unknowing accomplice. Unknowing because he usually doesn't understand the great lengths of Kenan's trouble, and also unknowing because he doesn't really know all that much. He just goes along with everything that Kenan says because, well, I guess that's what friends do. Kel constantly says the wrong things at the wrong times, and he does the wrong thing all of the time. He's an asset to Kenan because he's the only one who would go along with his plans. But he's a detriment to him because he's the reason the vast majority of the plans go awry. I mean, the guy's clumsy, he's dim-witted, he's an accident waiting to happen. The guy is a total clown. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Kel's physical comedy is always over the top, but also on point. The man was out here taking bumps I haven't seen some wrestlers take.
Oh, here it goes.
He's just ragdolling himself all around. How is he in present day? Is he alright? Is his back okay? I'm concerned. In some ways, Kel was the series' Urkel. And I'm not talking in terms of character. Obviously in that perspective, they're night and day. But in terms of his place on the show. I feel like a lot of people were tuning in for his wild, over-the-top comedy. Kinda similar to how people were tuning into Family Matters for the exact same thing. He's also never shown with his family. Instead, he spends most of his time at the series lead's house, annoying the father figure of that family. So yeah, there's a little bit of a comparison to be made despite all that's contrasting. Kenan and Kel just worked well together. They were like a live-action Pinky and the Brain. The two played perfectly off each other. And just like the theme song says, they're like Abbott and Costello. I'm not too sure about that Siegfried and Roy comparison though. Sorry, Coolio, you may be off on this one. Much like your barber, you made a mistake. I mean, look at those two little aisles of hair on your head. Screw Andy Samberg, that is the real Lonely Island right there. Kenan's father is the father of many people's nightmares and also many people's realities. He's a very stern individual whose anger defines him. Which helps plots out because you don't want to see Kenan get found out by him. Whatever the kid's trying to get away with, you really hope that you see him get away with it. He's a scary dude. Apparently 90% of the job requirements was just to yell, because that's mostly what he does. But despite being a very stern individual, he's shown to be a very loving father. He always reminded me of my own dad. Minus the loving father part. To my family watching these videos, that was a joke. Please don't tell him I said that. Kenan's mother doesn't seem to have much of a character. She's just the occasional voice of reason and a constant mom. Those are her only two defining character traits. He has a little sister, Kyra, who is hopelessly in love with Kel, and that's her character. She's also played by the little girl from Gullah Gullah Island, and now I have that theme song stuck in my head, so that's great.
Please stand by.
You also had Kenan's boss at the grocery store he works at, Chris, who is a whiny mama's boy and just an overall man-child, in that he is a man, but looks, sounds, and mostly acts like a child. I gotta say, his very recognizable voice is pretty iconic to me.
Right there. No, him. Go! Oh, the poo-poo platter!
Like, just hearing him bitch and moan whenever Kel shows up and does something, it just feels like a trip down memory lane. The later seasons also introduced a dorky do-gooder next-door neighbor, Mark, and a new co-worker, Charla, who Kenan crushed on. Nick Cannon was also on the show, but, I'm not gonna hold it against them. Overall, I think what I really love about this series is that in the 4 seasons that it ran, it never once took itself seriously. There was never a special episode of Kenan and Kel that touched on real-life issues. You weren't going to get a PSA or a message at the end of each episode. This just wasn't that type of show. The show had all the depth of a typical Will Ferrell movie. I'm not saying anything bad about all the series that want to convey a message or they want to have their voices heard. No one's saying anything bad about that. I'm just saying that not every show needs to be that in order for that show to be good. Kenan and Kel was great because it was pure goofiness for the sake of pure goofiness. It's a feel-good show. The comedy is definitely geared toward a younger audience, and as it's on Nickelodeon, all of its characters act like they're in a cartoon. It's unapologetically campy, but it knows what it is. For the most part, I think this show still holds up. And I've already watched through the entire series twice in making this video. Once for work-related purposes, and once because I really enjoyed it. Though I will say, the series isn't picture perfect. The episodes are very one-note and can be very formulaic. The show's plots are pretty repetitive. It's almost the same exact setup every time. Kenan has some new scheme or tries to devise a plan. It goes horribly wrong, usually due to Kel's incompetence, but sometimes due to Kenan's negligence. And then whatever the most outrageous thing that could possibly happen, happens. People are pushed out of rooms, shoved off set, terrible lies are spewed, words are usually said in the most unconvincing of manners, faces are made, and then Kenan says, "Why?" And then the boys eventually come clean and fess up to whatever they did. Rinse, wash, repeat. It makes sense as to why this is done. On one hand, this was never meant to be binge-watched. This was made well before streaming services, and even before most shows came out on DVD. But also, and more importantly, because if it's not broke, don't fix it. The show wasn't meant to have some overall continuity and canon and depth. There's no ongoing plot here, because once again, it's not really that type of show. This is a popcorn show through and through. Just sit down, turn your brain off, and be entertained. And a lot of people talk down on those type of shows because art needs to make you think. But I'm gonna call bullshit. Sometimes entertainment's only purpose is to entertain. Novel concept, I know.
Man, do I sound like an idiot.
And I think that's why I love this show so much. It's simple, but effective. The show was set up purely to make you laugh, and I can assure you, that's exactly what I did. I mean, I can't even tell you how many of my parents' blank VHS tapes were used up recording every episode I possibly could find of this show. Every new episode, every rerun, I had them all.
Hey, best friend! Oh, fuck!
What'd you do?
And my parents were none too pleased because those tapes cost a lot of money back in the day. But I couldn't help it. This show had me hooked as a kid. And it's the first live-action show I remember calling my favorite show. And I called it that for a very long time. When you tuned into Kenan and Kel, you always knew exactly what it was you were getting. And you came back each and every week because you enjoyed getting it. Man, I really gotta learn how to better phrase things, especially considering I literally get paid to speak for a living. And you know what, real quick, I just gotta take a stand here. Fuck Dave Chappelle. Yeah, you remember back in the day when he was out here shit-talking Key and Peele for allegedly stealing his style of show? All because they came out and interacted with an audience before and after their show? Where was Dave when they made Kenan and Kel? Why didn't he list them as creative influences? I haven't seen this kind of blatant theft from a comedian since Carlos Mencia had his own Joe Rogan experience. Speaking of being inspired by / being blatantly ripped off of, I always thought that Drake and Josh was a second attempt at recreating the magic of Kenan and Kel. And after rewatching this series in its entirety, I think that even more so. Sure, they're both basic opposite attracts buddy comedies made by Nickelodeon, but the overall comedic stylings are quite similar too. Just with Drake and Josh being a little bit more grounded in reality by comparison. There's also similar animated transitions in between scenes that are highlighted as well, but I think that they're different enough shows to survive on their own. Still, I think there's a comparison to be made here. While I wouldn't say the latter, Drake and Josh, is a complete clone or exact copy of its predecessor, I will say that I think they definitely share the same blueprint. Surprisingly, I think a lot of the humor in the show still holds up to this day. The show didn't focus too heavily on name-dropping whoever was popular at the time, or addressing the issues of the world, and because of that, it's kinda timeless. If you watch it today, you don't feel like you're watching something outdated. Unless you're making note of the lack of cell phones, Kenan and Kel could very well take place today. And I'll say it now, if Kenan and Kel weren't a part of your childhood, then as an adult, it is your responsibility to correct that problem. I would highly suggest tracking the series down and giving it a watch. If you want to laugh or you need to be entertained, the show is the best kind of harmless fun. I not only recommend it, I recommend it to the highest degree. If you didn't tune in, then you missed out. So with all that being said, I was your least favorite YouTuber, Infuso, and I thank you for watching. Hope to see it. Although, I think I just figured out how we can bring Kenan and Kel to everyone who missed it. So I'm gonna need you to bring a Batman suit, a Michael Myers mask, the full history of Power Rangers, an NWO shirt, the 2.5 Men Complete Series box set, the Nostalgia Critic's gun, and a big case of orange soda, and meet me in the next YouTube video.
I am vengeance. I am the night, and that was V Infuso. Just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
Catch him next time. Same bat time. Same bat channel.
That is so rad.
Yes, it's rad. But why are you still here?